Hey everyone, and welcome back to MenoMindful. If you're finding yourself here because you've been staring at the ceiling at 3 a.m., wondering why sleep has suddenly become this elusive, mythical creature, well, my friend, you are in exactly the right place. Today, we're diving deep into one of perimenopause's most frustrating companions, the great sleep struggle. And I'm going to share not just the science of why it happens, but the very real, very messy journey of how I finally started finding rest again. So, let me set the scene for you with some brutal honesty. It started about 2 years ago for me, right around my 47th birthday. I'd fall asleep fine, completely exhausted from the day, but then, bam, wide awake at 3:17 a.m. like clockwork. Not just awake, but my mind would kick into what I now call the 3 a.m. overthinking Olympics. I'd be, worrying about whether I left the stove on, composing my entire grocery list, and planning my daughter's wedding even though she's only 16, all at the same time. And the worst part? The sheer panic that would set in. Watching the clock, calculating how few hours of sleep I had left, which of course just made it absolutely impossible to actually fall back asleep. I remember one night so vividly. I was lying there, tears streaming down my face, convinced I was losing my mind. My husband would be snoring peacefully beside me, and I'd feel this mix of resentment and loneliness that's hard to describe. The next day, I'd be a zombie, forgetting words mid-sentence, drinking coffee like it was water, and snapping at everyone I loved. It was a vicious cycle that felt completely out of my control. Turns out, my brain wasn't broken. It was just hormonally hijacked, and understanding this was the first step toward reclaiming my sleep. Here's the science, and I promise I'll keep it accessible but thorough. Estrogen, our fabulous friend, plays a huge role in regulating serotonin production, which then gets converted into melatonin, our sleep hormone. As estrogen starts its roller coaster ride down during perimenopause, and research from the Journal of Clinical Endocrinology and Metabolism shows it can fluctuate by up to 40% day to day, that whole production line gets completely disrupted. Then there's progesterone, our natural calming agent and the hormone that promotes deep restorative sleep. That declines too, taking its soothing, sleep-promoting effects with it. A 2022 study in Sleep Medicine Reviews found that progesterone deficiency is directly linked to increased sleep fragmentation in perimenopausal women. And let's not forget the vasomotor symptoms, the fancy term for night sweats and hot flashes that can feel like your personal internal sauna. According to research from the North American Menopause Society, these episodes can significantly fragment sleep architecture, pulling you out of deep restorative sleep cycles up to 10 to 15 times per night. But there's more. Cortisol rhythms get disrupted too, with many women experiencing elevated nighttime cortisol that keeps us in a state of hyperarousal. It's not just in your head. It's a perfect biological storm of hormonal shifts, thermoregulation issues, and neurotransmitter imbalances that create this sleep-disrupting perfect storm. Now, in my desperation, I tried everything under the sun, and I mean everything. I followed all the classic advice religiously: no screens after 8 p.m., chamomile tea that could float a battleship, a strict bedtime routine that would make a Navy SEAL proud. I became a supplement connoisseur: magnesium glycinate, valerian root, passion flower, ashwagandha, L-theanine, you name it. It was in my cupboard. I spent hundreds of dollars on sleep trackers, weighted blankets, and every cooling pillow on the market. I even, and I'm not proud of this, begged my doctor for sleeping pills after a particularly brutal week where I'd gotten maybe 12 hours total across 5 nights. They worked for a night or two. Then the groggy hangover the next day wasn't worth it. I felt like I was moving through molasses, and the brain fog was even worse than the sleep deprivation. I tried melatonin in every possible dose and formulation, only to discover through trial and error that it actually made my sleep more fragmented. I felt like I was fighting my own body and losing, badly. The isolation was profound. Friends would complain about being tired from staying up too late watching Netflix, and I'd just nod, not having the energy to explain that my exhaustion came from a completely different, more desperate place. It was a lonely battle that made me question my sanity and my resilience. What finally started to turn the tide for me wasn't one magic bullet, but a combination of strategies that I pieced together through research, trial, and error, and working with a fantastic menopause specialist. First, strength training became non-negotiable. A landmark 2021 study from Harvard showed that regular resistance exercise just 3 times a week can significantly improve sleep quality in midlife women by up to 30%. It helps regulate cortisol levels and boosts growth hormone production during sleep. Who knew lifting weights could be such a powerful sleep aid? Pairing that with getting morning sunlight within an hour of waking, even just 15 minutes without sunglasses, helped reset my circadian rhythm dramatically. The blue light exposure tells your brain it's daytime and helps regulate melatonin production for later. For the night sweats, I became a cooling hack expert. Moisture-wicking bamboo pajamas, a chilled gel pillow that stays cool for hours, keeping a frozen water bottle by the bed to press against pulse points, and even using a bedside fan with a timer. I also discovered CBT-I, cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia, which was revolutionary for breaking that panic cycle of clock watching. The technique involves stimulus control only using the bed for sleep and sex, sleep restriction temporarily limiting time in bed to increase sleep efficiency, and cognitive restructuring to challenge those "I'll never sleep again" thoughts. And after extensive testing and conversation with my menopause specialist, I started micronized progesterone at bedtime, which for me was an absolute game changer for staying asleep through the night. We also optimized my vitamin D levels crucial for sleep regulation and addressed underlying nutrient deficiencies that can exacerbate sleep issues. The key was understanding that this requires a multi-system approach, hormonal, behavioral, environmental, and nutritional all working together. I want to share some specific, practical strategies that made a real difference for me, because sometimes the devil is in the details. First, let's talk about temperature regulation. I keep a spray bottle with water by my bed and mist my face and neck when a hot flash starts. It's instant relief. I also invested in temperature-regulating bedding that wicks moisture away, and I sleep with my feet outside the covers, which surprisingly helps with overall body temperature control. For the mental chatter, I created a worry journal that I write in for 10 minutes before bed. Getting all those thoughts on paper somehow tells my brain they're handled, and I can let them go. Nutrition-wise, I found that having a small protein-rich snack about an hour before bed, like a tablespoon of almond butter or a few slices of turkey, helps stabilize blood sugar overnight. And perhaps most importantly, I stopped drinking alcohol entirely during the week. Even one glass of wine would guarantee me waking up at 3 a.m. with racing thoughts. These small, consistent changes added up to create meaningful improvement over time. Let's dive deeper into the research, because knowledge really is power when you're dealing with this. A fascinating 2022 study from the University of California found that perimenopausal women experience what they call sleep state misperception. We often underestimate how much sleep we're actually getting by up to 1 hour, which amplifies our anxiety about sleep loss. Understanding this helped me reframe my experience. Another key finding from the National Sleep Foundation: women in perimenopause need about 7 to 9 hours of sleep, but the quality matters more than the quantity. They emphasize sleep efficiency, the percentage of time in bed actually spent sleeping, rather than total hours. This was liberating for me because I stopped obsessing over hitting 8 hours exactly. Research also shows that our sleep architecture changes during this time. We spend less time in deep, slow wave sleep and REM sleep, which is why we wake up feeling unrefreshed, even if we've been in bed for hours. The good news? Studies indicate that with the right interventions, we can improve sleep efficiency by up to 40% within just a few weeks. This isn't just anecdotal, it's evidence-based hope. I also want to address the emotional toll because nobody talks about this enough. The sleep deprivation from perimenopause isn't like pulling an all-nighter in college. It's chronic, it's relentless, and it affects every aspect of your life. I remember days where I'd be in a work meeting and completely lose my train of thought, or I'd snap at my daughter over something trivial and then burst into tears from the guilt and exhaustion. The brain fog is real. It's like trying to think through cotton wool. Research from Johns Hopkins shows that chronic sleep disruption during perimenopause is linked to increased risk of anxiety and depression, and it can accelerate cognitive aging. This isn't just about being tired. It's about your mental health, your relationships, your job performance, your sense of self. I had to learn to give myself grace on the hard days, to communicate with my family about what I was experiencing, and to prioritize rest without apology. I started scheduling recovery naps on weekends instead of trying to power through, and I became ruthless about protecting my sleep window. The emotional journey is just as important as the physiological one, and acknowledging that was crucial for my overall well-being. One of the most empowering realizations for me was understanding that I could actually work with my body's new rhythms rather than fighting against them. I learned about ultradian rhythms, the 90-120-minute cycles our bodies naturally go through during sleep and wakefulness. Instead of panicking when I woke up after one sleep cycle, I began to see it as my body's natural rhythm. I created a plan. If I'm awake for more than 20 minutes, I get up and do something calming like reading or gentle stretching, rather than lying there getting more anxious. I also embraced the concept of sleep banking. If I knew I had a potentially bad night coming, maybe due to stress or hormonal fluctuations, I'd prioritize extra rest the night before rather than trying to catch up afterward. Another game changer was learning about the two-process model of sleep regulation. Process S sleep drive that builds throughout the day, and process C circadian rhythms. By understanding these biological processes, I could strategically time my activities, like scheduling intense exercise earlier in the day and winding down activities in the evening, to work with my body's natural sleep-wake mechanisms rather than against them. I want to leave you with some hope and concrete next steps because I know how overwhelming this can feel. Start small, pick one strategy from today's episode and try it consistently for 2 weeks. Maybe it's the morning sunlight exposure, or the temperature regulation tricks, or the worry journal. Track your sleep patterns, not obsessively, but just enough to notice trends. Consider finding a menopause-informed healthcare provider who understands that sleep issues during this transition are medical, not psychological. Join online communities of women going through the same thing. The validation and shared wisdom can be incredibly powerful. Remember that this is a season, not your forever reality. The research shows that for most women, sleep patterns do stabilize post-menopause. In the meantime, you're gathering tools and resilience that will serve you well beyond this transition. You're learning to listen to your body in new ways, to advocate for your health, and to prioritize your well-being. And those are gifts that will last a lifetime, even if the sleep struggles don't. But the biggest shift, and perhaps the most challenging, was a complete mindset transformation. I had to stop seeing myself as broken and start seeing myself as a detective, patiently figuring out what my new body needed. Some nights are still better than others, and that's okay. I've learned to release the expectation of perfect sleep and celebrate the small wins. When I do wake up at 3 a.m. now, instead of panicking, I have a toolkit. I practice 4-7-8 breathing. Inhale for 4, hold for 7, exhale for 8, listen to a sleep meditation, or if I'm really awake, I get up and read for 20 minutes under soft light rather than fighting it. I've created a sleep sanctuary in my bedroom, blackout curtains, temperature set to 65 degrees, white noise machine, and no work materials allowed. The research is clear on this. According to a 2023 study in the Journal of Women's Health, women who adopt a combination of behavioral strategies and targeted hormone support show the most significant improvements in sleep quality and overall quality of life during perimenopause. So if you're in the thick of it, please know this: you are not alone, you are not broken, and this is not your fault. This is a physiological transition that up to 80% of women experience, and there are evidence-based tools, supportive healthcare providers, and a whole community here to support you. I'd love to hear what's working for you. Share your experiences and tips in the comments below. Let's learn from each other and normalize these conversations. Thanks for listening, and here's to hoping we all get a little more restorative shut-eye tonight. Remember, progress, not perfection, is the goal.